right, we got a hot topic coming in. Let's talk about what we do when you're ready to sleep train your baby. You need to change their sleep habits, but your parents, aka the baby's grandparents, are the ones who primarily watch your baby during the day while you're at work. Now, this comes with so many perks, including free childcare and special bonding time with your parents and your baby. You will never get that time back, and neither will your parents. So count your blessings, because we don't all have that perk in life. However, I understand that it can be frustrating if your parents or in-laws are not quite on board with sleep training. But let's talk about my top 6 tips on how to get grandparents involved and on board with sleep training. Number 1 is simple. You need to educate them. Just kind of have a nice, calm conversation about why sleep training is important specifically to you, but more specifically to your baby. What are the benefits of sleep? Now, I know that grandparents are typically going to say, well, I never had this problem with you. I just closed the door and you learned to sleep. Well, we know more, so we do more. And that might mean that you don't want your baby to cry it out, and that is perfectly fine. When you hire a sleep consultant, we are trained to assess your individual situation and make you a customized sleep plan that meets you where you are in your parenting style and your child's milestones and temperament. So it's a bit different than when your parents were new parents. So really just educating them on that, and also letting them in on a little peek as to what your child might be like in the later evenings, what it's like overnight, and just kind of giving them more of a glimpse of what you're struggling with. I know that for me, even one night away and off schedule, my daughter, when she was a baby, she would be so incredibly cranky, fussy, and overtired the next day. And when my oldest was in daycare, he had such FOMO that the kid never slept a wink in 3 months until I pulled him out of daycare. But he never slept, and when we got home, he was absolutely miserable. Now, no hate to the daycare center. They did everything they could to get him to sleep. However, it just wasn't happening for him in that environment. Explaining to your parents exactly why you need to make these sleep changes is going to make a big difference. Now, some parents / grandparents are going to be a little bit more scientific. They're going to want to see the data. If you need research on why babies need consolidated sleep, you can leave me a comment in the comment section down below, and I will seriously pull up links to research that backs up why sleep training is a necessity. Number 2 is that if you are working with a sleep consultant, you can have your parents on the consultation call or the check-in call, or however your sleep consultant does things, preferably, you know, you're working with me. But if you are working with somebody else, then just ask them how involved can the grandparents be. I am the kind of consultant who is sharing text message threads with grandparents. I am sharing sleep log links with grandparents. I'm sharing the sleep plan with grandparents. And I also have a cheat sheet in my sleep plans for the parent to share with the grandparent in case the grandparent doesn't want to read my 20-page reports on sleep training. Make sure that your parent, aka the grandparent, so I'm speaking to you as the parent, so when I say parent, I'm talking about your baby's grandparent, okay? Can we just like use that for the rest of the video? Thank you. So make sure that they understand the sleep plan and everything that you are laying out for them. If they don't understand it clearly, they're not going to be able to follow it. So sometimes it really is just an issue of clarity, and maybe they're just not sure of how you want to go about things. So make sure that they understand everything perfectly clearly. And number 3 is to write it down for them. So I mentioned the sleep plan and cliff notes and text messages and all the things that I have for my clients. The heat just kicked on, so you might hear it, but it is literally 10 degrees outside, so I'm not turning it off. Some families will set nap alarms. So if your parents are watching your baby at your house, you might be able to more easily do this, but setting alarms for your parents might make it easier for them to remember when they need to do nap. You also need to explain things that are non-negotiables. So if your baby is over 6 months old, I'm going to have you using set nap time. times. Nap number 1, non-negotiable, always has to be at 9 a.m. That is like end all be all, that's what we're doing. If nap 2 has to be a little bit earlier, a little bit later, if nap 1 was really short, and you know, like whatever happens, you know, you can explain to your parents that we're following an 80-20 rule. This is how our week looks, so 80% of your time with the baby, follow the schedule, 20% of the time, we get it. So not only do you have your non-negotiables laid out for your parents, but you also have your areas of flexibility laid out with your parents, because let's just be real that it's not always going to be perfect all the time. They're not always going to follow your schedule, and maybe sometimes the baby is giving them more of a hard time than they can handle, and they end up needing to rock the baby a little bit more asleep than you prefer. But you also have to keep in mind that like your parents' sanity and your free childcare is a great thing. Number 4 is to consistently, and by consistently I mean maybe like weekly, ask your parents if they have any questions about the sleep routine and everything that is going on. And not even necessarily asking them if they have questions, but really just asking them like, hey, how did you put the baby down for nap today? Hey, how long did the baby sleep today? Or, you know, asking them these questions and asking them if they have any questions will really help to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And that also means that you're addressing their concerns. If your mom is a super cuddly, like I don't know how I'm ever gonna be a grandma because I am such a super cuddly person. Obviously I'm going to prioritize my grandkids' sleep. Okay, let's not get away from the topic, but I am super cuddly, and thinking about cuddling my grandkids is like, oh, it's mushy mushy, I want to hold you forever. However, explain to your parents alternatives. So if you have a parent who loves rocking your baby to sleep, as maybe you do or did in the past, then you can explain to your parent that instead of rocking them and cuddling them until they're asleep, when it's time for them to wake up from their nap, they can easily cuddle them awake. So getting them awake when they're still a little bit drowsy, getting in the rocking chair, staying in a dim, dark room for a little while, rocking together so the baby is slowly waking up, singing songs and talking and just having a really nice bonding moment then, instead of at the beginning of nap time, can be a great alternative for those cuddly little bugs. Number 5, I am laughing at my notes that I'm looking at right down there because it says positive reinforcement, aka bribery. So you're gonna have to bribe your toddler sometimes, you're gonna have to bribe your parents sometimes too. And by that, I really just mean by showing your parents appreciation for all of their efforts and for them respecting your wishes for how you want your baby's sleep to go. So maybe that means bringing flowers, bringing them a special dessert, getting them a gift card for a night out for dinner together, or whatever it might be. Show some appreciation, give them some positive reinforcement, and also like show proof of maybe your child is super fussy and cranky at night before bedtime when you bring your kid home and you know you're out of the grandparent's hair, and maybe you're dealing with a lot of fussiness. But once you're a little bit into the sleep training process and you're seeing that fussiness is really dissipating, you can show your parents and be like, oh my gosh, thank you for all your help with the sleep training. Look at how happy she is right now. This makes such a difference in both of our lives. So really just kind of like showing them those things can also just kind of reinforce like, yes, we are doing a good thing and this is worth it. Number 6, of course, you need to make sure that there is a proper sleep environment at your parents' house. Now, that is gonna go for having a blackout room, white noise, and a safe sleep environment. I know that some grandparents don't want to buy a crib. So instead of putting your child on a bed for a nap, put them in a pack and play. You can get one off of Facebook Marketplace. You can go to Once Upon a Child. I don't know if that's a national chain for baby and toddler, like, well, baby and children, really. I think they go up to like size 16. Anyways, you can find a secondhand pack and play if you don't want to spend the money to buy one brand new. But it is more important to make sure that your baby is safe in their sleep environment, especially when it's going to be, you know, a good solid couple years between when your parents start watching the baby and when they graduate to a toddler bed or just a regular big kid bed. Now remember to be patient, have reasonable expectations, and understand that your parents did not have the resources that you have now when they were raising you. do. I know, we all turned out okay, but did we really? No, just kidding. We all turned out fine. I know that a lot of grandparents did not have these resources. Some parents back in the day were self-taught and would go to the library and get the books and do all the things. But now with like social media and internet and just so much information out there, a lot of us parents are a lot more diligent on how we raise our kids and a lot more picky about what we do and don't do with our kids. So just remember, be patient with your parents, give them some grace, go through all of these things that I just gave you, and keep blooming. Mwah.